here to do my final video in the Misunderstandings about the Animal series. So I am saving the blast for last. And this might be a little longer than my other videos because I think blast is probably the most misunderstood of all the animals in objective personality. So when you think about animals in the animal kingdom, you know, it's pretty easy to envision sleep, you know, literally animals sleeping, or playing with other animals, or, you know, consuming food or drink. But for blast, blast is, think of it as producing for the tribe. So I have a bee colony here producing honey for the bees, and just working with other bees in the colony, or maybe a beaver that's building a dam. Those might be some examples of how animals in the kingdom are doing blast. But what about blast in terms of objective personality? So, as you recall, the animals are a result of an observer function and a decider function interacting with each other. So when you have the blast animal, you have OI interacting with DE. So it's the organizing human need plus the tribe human need. So think of it as organizing for the tribe. And it is the opposite side of the coin as consume is. So consume, as you recall, was gathering for oneself. So consume and blast are both two sides of the information animal coin. So consume is taking in new information for oneself, whereas blast is taking the known information and putting it out to the tribe. So what is blast in objective personality? So it is organizing for the tribe. It is responsible for taking their same known organized information and teaching it or sharing it with others. It is quick to communicate and get projects started because it isn't necessary for them to gather all the information first. Now, this is not to say that blast is going to just get started with no information at all, because, I mean, information doesn't exist in a vacuum. You can't do something if you got absolutely no information at all. But think of it in terms of the degree of information. A savior blast, in general, will need less information than a savior consume would to get started on something. A blast, somebody with savior blast is more comfortable not having all the information, you know, but just what it deems enough to get going. And blast will often unconsciously consume information and share it before they truly own it or know where it came from. So oftentimes those with savior blast, when they're teaching others information, it kind of helps them to learn it for themselves in the process. That is one way that they can start to own the information for themselves, is by teaching it to others. And sometimes the savior blast may not always know exactly where the information came from. They're like, okay, I read it somewhere, I'm ready to share it. Whereas consume may be more likely to deeply respect the information and actually know where it came from. So what are some of the misunderstandings that people have about blast? So first of all is that savior blast does not struggle to get started. And I think this is a common myth, because people will generally have trouble getting started on their demons. You know, whether it's a demon function or a demon animal. And I think a reason why blast often is associated with getting started is because on average they do tend to need less information than a Savior Consume would to get started on something. But that doesn't mean Savior Blast will never struggle getting started. For example, a Savior Blast might procrastinate on writing a paper for school. Why? Because they would have to do research. They'd have to consume and take in new information. So they might procrastinate on that consume animal. Or they might procrastinate their play animal or their sleep animal, depending on what their demon is, or something that would involve their demon function. I think oftentimes, too, blast is often associated with getting started because when people think about getting started on things, it's oftentimes associated with tasks that involve organizing for the tribe. Like, for example, getting started filling out forms or paperwork, which is like a form of organizing, for like the company, for example, for somebody else that needs it, or writing papers for class. Those are activities that kind of involve organizing for the tribe. And so Savior Blast will generally have an easier time getting started on those kinds of things. But there's a lot of other things in life where they can really struggle getting started on. They might struggle, for example, with making a major change in their life, like in their life path, for example, because that might involve sleep energy. They got a sleep process. Do I even really want this for myself? And if sleep is a demon, that might be hard for them to do. They might just kind of do what's already in their known box. A second misconception is Savior Blast brags a lot. And I know Dave and Shannon have mentioned this, and honestly, I'm not really sure where they're getting this from. I'm just kind of throw a guess here, but because Blast often likes to share its known information and is often confident in doing so, I think people may wrongly think of that as bragging. But that doesn't mean, Blast is necessarily bragging. And oftentimes what Blast isn't doing isn't really bragging. That's not their intention. They just want to share their known information to kind of get the tribe on board and get everybody on the same page. It isn't about being superior to someone else. In fact, I think that superiority, I think that would more likely come from the DI human need of significance, not the DE human need of tribe. Blast is controlling the tribe. Now, it's not totally wrong to say that Blast is controlling the tribe, because after all, the Blast animal is made up of OI and DE, okay? But I think people often misinterpret controlling the tribe to have a negative connotation, to think it's about being totally domineering and being like a dictator. And it's rare that Blast Savior is doing that. I mean, yes, Blast Savior can do that. I mean, yes, that would be Blast. But that would probably be more likely if both of the functions in the Blast were masculine, especially the DE function, or if this person was like all in on their saviors and just not very balanced at all. But most of the time, Blast will show up more like guiding other people in the right direction. Or maybe just even organizing something for someone else. So those are also means of providing control that are not necessarily about just dominating other people. And Blast doesn't even necessarily have to be leading other people. I mean, it can be following somebody else's lead. Like, for example, if someone requests, I need you to write minutes for a meeting, okay? And you comply and you write the minutes for a meeting and you write it in an organized fashion so that the tribe can follow it and understand it. That would be a form of blast. And you're following someone else's lead. So, yeah. Savior blasts are know-it-alls. This is another common misunderstanding. And again, I think it just comes from the fact that blast consumes its known, or not, excuse me, not consumes its known information, but shares its known information with other people and does so readily and does so confidently. So sometimes that can make somebody appear a know-it-all, and also they're more inclined to share what they know, and they may not necessarily have to know every little bit of something to share it. So they can appear like a know-it-all, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily are a know-it-all. And I think that know-it-all myth is probably going to be more common with somebody that has consume as their last animal. So finally, blast is talking a lot or communicating effectively. Blast does not even have to be talking. I know Dave and Shannon often associate blast with talking. Somebody who talks well or talks a lot has savior blast. Blast can be written, like you're writing a report for somebody. That's a written form of blast. That's not talking. It's still organizing for the tribe. Or it can even be nonverbal. Like if you're doing a task in an organized fashion that would benefit the tribe in some way, that would be a nonverbal form of blast. And blasters don't necessarily communicate effectively if they haven't consumed enough information, for example, and they haven't, or maybe if they haven't sleep processed what they've said to other people, it can still look sloppy to other people. So yeah, keep that in mind. So those are some of the misunderstandings about blast. I hope that you enjoyed this series of common misconceptions of each of the animals. If you want to learn more, I will share a link to my playlist for the other 3 animals. And if you want to see more content, please like my video and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications. If you have any more thoughts about the blast animal, please share them in the comments below. Bye-bye.